Hi, welcome to the Budding Author Podcast with me, your host, Simon Ward. Today, we're talking to an author of escapist fiction and intriguing, also avid fan of old movies. We have Jeanne Roland. How you doing, Jeanne?
I'm good. How are you, Simon?
Oh, I'm good. I'm waiting for the summer to appear so things get a bit warmer. I want to get on to your love of old films, but first of all, author-wise, what got you started on your writing journey?
Well, I'm going to differ a little bit, I think, from some people who you had on your show. I've watched a few of your videos. I have not been someone who's been writing fiction my whole life. I was definitely someone who was more of a daydreamer. I loved to daydream stories in my head. That goes along with my love of old movies, imagine myself into movies. So I really didn't start writing fiction until about 10 years ago, and my debut was the first actual work of fiction I've ever written.
Ah, got you. Was you a big reader when you were younger, or not so
Oh,
much?
yes, yes. And
Yeah.
I have done a lot of writing, but it just wasn't fiction writing. A lot of
Okay.
literary analysis, reading. Of course, everybody who writes is a reader, I think.
And well, you say that. I think I perhaps differ from. I've a lot of my reading was sort of autobiographies. As sort of that's where a lot of my reading was before sort of I started writing. Escapist fiction. Why did you choose that genre? What took you with that?
Well, it goes along with what started me writing, which is that I've always wanted to do something creative. But I always felt to actually write something like I had to write, the great American novel, or had to have something I really wanted to say, and, some great literary work. And that was holding me back and keeping me from writing. And then just by chance, I picked up The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins.
Okay, yeah.
And I read it, and I thought that it was brilliant. But I also sort of thought, this is not exactly what I had in mind as, the great literary effort that authors had to have. Maybe I could just write some of those daydreams and fantasies that I love to dream myself, and write those for other people to find an escape in too. But hopefully write them, with some literary flair. Somebody who wants a good escapist novel but wants it to be well written.
Yeah.
The kind of thing that I enjoy reading myself.
It
So
is it is difficult for writers to get started, isn't it? The one of my recent guests, Dennis Collins, said right at the end of the show, um, just keep writing. If you've written something, you can improve it and make it better, but you can't improve nothing. Is that
that's true.
so that was quite a good one from Dennis. Um, what's your biggest challenge? I think at the moment.
At the moment, my biggest challenge always changes, but I think right now what my biggest challenge is, I'm writing a series, and it is a continuous series, so the story continues, and I'm on the final volume. I really need to finish it. I can't leave all my characters hanging, but I made it short.
That would be an interesting ending, wouldn't it? If they're all hanging.
No, I don't think anyone would appreciate that at all. So I definitely have to finish it. I want to finish it. It's really my huge goal in life to finish this series and finish it in a way that I can be happy with. But I have found that that is a lot of pressure, feeling like this last volume has to be good, that I have to do justice to the story, that I have to not let myself or my readers down. And I found that, if I could go back in retrospect, I might have waited to publish any of the volumes until I was done with the whole thing, because I have found it hard to sort of get the voices out of my head, worrying what other people are going to think, what readers expect,
Yeah,
and get back to the feeling of writing just for myself, which is where I started. So
yeah.
that is the biggest challenge for me right now, I think.
And is each of those episodes standalone, or is it
No,
all just
no,
connected?
no, they cannot stand alone. The first one, I think that you can read it and not continue the series and find it, you know, a good ending. In fact, that was where I had originally intended to end, but then I just couldn't let my characters go. But you can't really jump in the middle of the series and understand what's going on. I have a big world, a million characters, a million plots that are all interwoven, and you would be lost.
that's going to be really hard to tie up at the end, isn't it? There,
Oh,
I
yes.
I produced a trilogy, and I thought it was a fitting end at the end of the trilogy, and several of my reader comments have been excellent. When's the next one? I want to hear what happens to Mia next. And it's like, no, that was the end of the series. It says, oh no, you need to do another one. So
right. Well, I think it would be possible to write more books in the same world, but I do have to finish this story arc. That is a must. After that, if I wanted to write one that was an additional one, that would be possible. But right now, the characters are hanging, and so are the readers. And so that is a lot of pressure.
I think if somebody was to sort of pick up book 4, how would they get on with that? Would that be a challenge to them, or would they be able to pick up from book 4 and just go?
Yeah, no. You got to start with 1 and go through the whole long, grueling experience, which is also a challenge. Yeah. That's also a challenge for marketing, because I really can't market anything but the first book, because you just can't jump in anywhere else in the series. So
it's funny. I say just my trilogy, not on the same length as yourselves. The second one was the first one. So we had Finding Love in 2045 that fits and rolls into Awoken in 2046. And then we had Time to Click, which is set before Finding Love in 2045. So people could start at book 2, which used to be book 1, or and do 2, 3, then 1, or 1, 2, 3 sort of thing. So it's sort of each. You could jump into each of them, and they're all sort of standalones, really, but connected. Right. But I do like what you're saying about building that sort of momentum of a longer, deeper level connection with the characters.
Well, I definitely wouldn't recommend it to other authors. I don't think it's the smart thing to do. I don't think it's the best approach. It probably is a lot better if you can keep each volume so that it is standalone in some way. It's just not what I happened to write. I didn't approach it from a what's marketable point of view. This was something that I started writing for myself. I wasn't even planning to publish it. But then, I did. So it is what it is. It's not necessarily the way I would recommend others do it.
Along the plotter or pantser lines, did you sort of outline the whole of the episodes before you started writing, or is it just developed and took a life of its own?
Yeah, absolutely not. I don't even know, if I would call myself a plotter, pantster, or some, hybrid of those things. With the first book, what I had was a setup, a scenario, a sort of core of what I wanted this story to be. And I knew where it was going, where it was going to end up, and, some of the major elements. But then I had no idea what path, the characters were going to take to get there. Okay. To be honest, that book almost wrote itself, because I really had a good idea of where it was going. The next volumes, although I had more of the plot worked out because I had to tie up all of the loose ends, I found it harder because often I wasn't sure sort of what the beating heart of the story really was, what the core of it was, not what was going to happen, but what this core was. My first book, the core of it is about a girl who disguises herself as a boy and swears she's going to help him without ever telling him she's a girl. That's like the core of it. I wanted to keep that, romantic core. The other books, it's not always easy to figure out how to write them, even if you know what's going to happen, if you don't have a good idea of sort of what the beating heart of your story is.
Yeah, I think it is. I think writing is something that you just need to sort of get started with, and then sort of improve your craft and that sort of stuff. As you say, as you've already said, I think going forward, probably producing standalones within a series perhaps would have been your preferred route.
Oh yeah, no more series. I'm definitely not going to write another series.
And would you say how many episodes did you say there is in this? How many books?
Well, originally it was going to be 1, then it was going to be 3. Now it is 4, and I'm determined that is all it is going to be, unless I do, a later one-off installment that doesn't have to exist.
Not wishing to sort of throw a comedic element to this, but as far as escapist fiction, it seems like you're almost trapped in the series.
Well, I'm very trapped in the series because also when I started writing this, I just was writing it as a story for myself. I wasn't thinking about the world of publishing. I didn't even ask myself, which person and which tense I was going to write in. I just started writing. And because, as I said, I had started writing after reading The Hunger Games, I chose first person present tense, which means that to write the story, I have to be in my character's head 24/7. It's one point of view, only her perspective, the entire thing. I have to live, breathe, channel her. It's as though I'm there living this book. And it's very draining, but it's also hard to know what she's thinking at every moment.
Who sort of monitors your writing? Who's your biggest champion, and who sort of looks at it as well with you?
Well, my sister is my biggest champion, that is for sure. The kind of books I write are not her preferred genre, but she's the first person who ever read them. She was the one who insisted that I publish. I was struggling to finish the series for myself, and so she pushed and pushed me to just go ahead and publish the first one, and I thank her for that, although I also curse her for that a little bit. I thank her for that because otherwise I surely never would have done it. But then the person who really helps me with the writing the most is actually a friend who lives across the country, who was the sister of one of my best friends growing up. And she also loves to write. She's a fantastic writer. She hasn't published anything yet, but she's a phenomenal writer. And she reads all of my work. And I basically feel like I'm writing for her. If she likes it, then it's good to go. So my alpha, beta, and omega reader.
That's it. I think it's difficult sometimes when you first start writing to think of the audience that it's for. Now, of course, for the more professional writers, that's the only thing they have in mind. But as you say for yourself, Jeanne, you're writing it for yourself. And I think my first 3 novels I was just writing them for myself, really. And then when you finish, it's like, where shall I put where does this fit? What genre is this then? It's sort of along the lines.
That's been a huge problem. Yeah, my book does not fit any genre at all. Whenever I try to place it somewhere on Amazon, I basically have also started cursing the whole invention of genres. What did I write? I wrote a book. I don't know what it is. And it just narrowly misses so many categories. It really is immersive. It reads like fantasy, but there's no paranormal or fantasy elements.
Yeah.
It's set in a historical period, but there's really not a lot of history. It's swashbuckling, but there are no pirates. It's YA, but I didn't, because of the protagonist's age and some of the coming of age themes, but I didn't write it for teens. So, it's romantic, hyper romantic, but it's not a romance novel. So I don't know what it is.
You've got the same kind of problems as me. Mine's sort of science fiction, but it's not set in space. It's got a lot of romantic elements, but it's not really a romance. And lots of adventure, but it's probably partly thrilling, but not so many people die. Well, there are a couple of people dying, but it's not really a typical thriller either. Talking with Kayla Hicks, the interview the chat that we had was a phenomenal chat, really, for anybody that's sort of thinking about publishing and building an audience. It was a phenomenal listen. I listened to it again this morning, and it reminded me the pigeonholing the genre. We discussed that, and what you were saying, if you can't pick a specific genre for it, what books is it like? So where mine was sort of didn't feel like sci-fi was the right thing. because it's futuristic, and there's robots in it. So I don't know. Did you see the Humans series?
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Did you see that in the US?
I'm not familiar with it.
There's the Humans series and Black Mirror. Did you see that? Or was that?
Sorry, I'm not very
Oh, you've not seen that?
culturally
Mine,
into.
mine is sort of Humans, Black Mirror kind of thing. A little bit iRobot, perhaps.
Okay.
iRobot is sort of an element, but I mean it's covering such an expanse of time and the technological breakthroughs
Right.
with
Yeah.
that.
I do think that I have a problem trying to find another book that is like mine. I think it is really unique and original, which should be a selling point, but sadly it's really not in this day and age. People want retellings, things that they already know what it's going to be before they start. But things that are closest to it always tend to have one element, like a mystery or
Yeah.
that high fantasy element, that are missing from mine. So I have definitely struggled with finding comparanda for it, definitely.
Yeah. I think, well, I think maybe a lot of authors may think that theirs is unique, and I suppose there is another one out there, but it's just whether we aware of it.
Whether I know about it, right? Whether I've
Yeah.
read it. Or as I
So
said, there's plenty that are sort of like it, but when I look to see what they're listed as, they're listed under something like Arthurian legend or, thriller mystery. And they're pinpointing some element that isn't the element that's similar to mine.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's quite different. You've got through the self-publishing route.
I
Um,
definitely did, yes.
have you contemplated going through a professional editor and agent?
I did, and full disclosure, I did have an agent for a while that I got in a long, circuitous way that is a boring story. I'm not going to tell you now. It kind of fell into my lap. But what happened there is that my book is long. It is too long for a debut.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too long for what it is. I think it's perfect perfect. I don't mean that. What I mean is that I think I like it. Let's put it that way. I
Yeah,
like it the way that it is. I did not want to cut it in half or cut it down. And ultimately, I made the hard decision that I really wasn't. I'm pretty inflexible, opinionated. I'm old. I also sort of know what I'm doing.
you're not that old, Jeanne.
What I'm doing is I wanted to publish my book, not just a book that sells. I
Yeah.
wanted to publish the book that I wrote the way I wrote it, and hopefully find some people who would enjoy it the way that it is. But if not, I was not willing to make the kinds of changes. That agent was great, and I'm sure that her suggestions were all things that would have made it successful or more successful. But it wouldn't have been my book. And I just decided at some point, what am I doing this for? I was doing this to put my, work of art, the thing that I poured my passion into, out there and share it with people. If it's a small handful of people, I'd rather do that than publish something that is, an X of Y and Z. And
Yeah, I think it can be a challenge there. Again, drawing again on the chat I had with Dennis Collins, and the agents, you may get more traction with an agent and a publisher, and you may sell more books, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a better book.
yeah, well, and also I didn't really like the idea of giving up, my characters. I knew that the first book was only the first in a series. Um, and yeah, I think it's important to emphasize, if there's anybody out there listening, that all of us who are publishing are not all doing this. Well, I don't think I'm a big celebrity draw here,
This is
But,
where I make a reminder to everybody that's watching is press the subscribe button to catch all of these wonderful interviews from all these experienced authors who've been there and done it, as well as the newer authors sort of finding their way. Yeah.
But what I was going to say, Simon, is I do think it's important to stress that we're not all after the same things. And I think it's really important when you decide to publish that you step back and you think about what it is that you actually want from publishing.
Yeah.
I have made some choices that are not choices I would recommend for other authors, ones who are, really trying to be a professional author, trying to make this their career, trying to establish themselves. That's just not the choice that I was making. I was making different choices for me about what I want to get out of it.
Yeah.
And, so for example, my covers are off genre. I mean, my book isn't even in a genre, so, but they're off any genre. They're not doing me a lot of favors. I would probably be more successful if I changed my covers, but, I like my covers. They're the covers that I wanted on my books.
The
They're
thing is, though, Jeanne, it's
my book, so,
there are so many people that say, "Oh, I can write a book, and I've got a book in me," and that sort of stuff. But the amount of people that actually follow through on that and actually get to a published manuscript and a published novel is very tiny. And so that is the first success, is getting that published work out there, and then down to, as you say, personal goals, really. From my point of view, and I think it's probably similar to yourself, our goal is we want people to read our stuff,
right.
And yes, we'll get paid for each sale, but I'm more interested in whether people like my stories and they enjoy my stories, and getting that out there. And if people do like the stories, and my fame level sort of grows above down here, then so be it. But I like writing stories, and if people like listening to them and reading them, then that's good.
And I have to say, I'm pretty proud of the fact that not only did I write the book and format the book and edit the book and design the covers and design my website and do all of my own marketing, that it's like every single element of this book, I did it all by myself. And just the biggest thing is that, I had the courage to put something that meant a lot to me out there publicly for public scorn, because
the stamp of you on the world, and isn't it? That's it.
Because nothing that you write that is actually, true and something that you really care about and that you put something into is going to appeal to everyone. I mean, if you write a book everyone can like, no one's going to love it. Yeah. So, it's very hard to put yourself out there, to put, your passion out for, people to say meh or or, there was a typo on page 12 or whatever, that's tough. So I commend anybody who who does that.
The thing is, it's have a goal and chase that goal, and get that book out there. Before we finish, I want to talk to you about your love of old movies and opera. So I just noticed that on opera, I hadn't seen that before.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I would have been an opera singer if sadly my voice wasn't terrible. I
I'm
love
more of a karaoke singer than an opera singer. I'm more of a karaoke singer than an opera singer.
Oh. Well, I'm neither. I'm not a singer at all. I'm a listener. I'm sort of deaf in one ear from being a teenager lying next to my huge stereo and blasting opera into my ears. I love everything melodramatic and over the top and hyper romantic. So, opera, old classic movies, black and white, swashbucklers, romantic heroes, Heathcliff crashing his head on a tree, that kind of stuff.
And what did you think of The Greatest Showman? Is it Ava Glynn, is it? Yeah. That.
With Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm more of an old musical fan. I'm not so fond of the modern belt out the big power ballad. I like more Gene Kelly and that kind of thing. And obviously, since I write about longbow archers, Errol Flynn, Robin Hood, that kind of genre.
Yeah,
that's more my thing.
We said before we went live that your sort of era is sort of, or the era that you like is the black and white era. And
Oh, well, I also love Technicolor Sword and Sandals. I'm a big fan of, all of those kind of things. Demetrius versus the Gladiators, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love the old black and white. In fact, all of my characters, all of my male characters are kind of have dark hair with one lock hanging over their heads because of seeing all of these actors in black and white where their hair is all washed out black.
yeah.
I imagine my heroes looking like the classic old actors, even though they're supposed to be like about 20, I probably picture them 35 or so. Yeah. So yes, my aesthetic has definitely been informed by classic old movies, Prisoner of Zenda, that kind of thing. Ronald Colman.
The creative mind, it's something that you have to feed, isn't it? You have to build on that. And the inputs from things such like old films, as I mentioned, A Wonderful Life and Brief Encounter are my sort of
oh yes, oh my gosh, I love Brief Encounter. That's one of my
favorites. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Also though, my series was inspired by a trip that our family took when I was, maybe 20 or so, way back then in the day, to Bruges in Belgium. And we visited an Archers Guild of St. Sebastian there. And there was a huge, massive, painting of St. Sebastian hanging inside. And it just stayed with me. So also, not just opera and movies, but art and, very much a romantic aesthetic.
Yeah, that's you've got quite a breadth there, haven't you, Jeanne?
I don't know, the surface of everything, a
whole ensemble of traits and that sort of thing. That's been excellent. Good luck with the book.
Thank you.
Are you quite happy with sales so far?
I think I have to be happy with them, given that I'm a self-publishing author no one has ever heard of, and I wrote a very long book that doesn't fit in any particular genre. So I think I have to be, very happy both with sales and with the reception that I've gotten. And I've, some of my readers are just fantastic and have been very supportive. So shout out to any readers, particularly my Facebook group. I love you guys. You guys are what keeps me going.
Ah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I was going to say, if people, it doesn't matter how many, if there are people enjoying your stories and enjoying your work, that's inspiration to continue, isn't it?
It is. You have to write for the ones who are going to want the stories that you want to write.
Yeah. I'm sort of in a bit of a crossover where I'm trying to get agents and that sort of stuff, just to increase engagement. And so there's a bit of a gap there. So I'm writing a YA series that I'm not going to put through agents and that sort of stuff, just to get it out so my listeners have something else from me, as it were. But I'd say, Jeanne, that's been great. I wish you very well.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
I hope it hasn't been too challenging for you. You were worried.
I usually don't like to show my face at all. So you were special that I agreed to do this just for you.
You made me feel very special now. Well, everybody watching this, thanks for viewing and that sort of thing. Press the subscribe button. We're trying to get my subscribers up past 100. That'll be a good start to sort of give us some more traction on YouTube, ready for the official audio launch. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Simon.